revealed an amazing love after 100 days, becoming a heartwarming part of his family. Sophie poured the last cup of coffee at the Silver Spoon Diner, the scent of freshly brewed Java mingling with buttered pancakes as the sun dipped low in the sky. This tiny Midwestern town thrived on routines, where life was painted in familiar strokes. In this rhythmic existence, she found solace after long shifts that often blurred into each other. Raised by a single mother who worked tirelessly to keep their small family afloat, Sophie bore the weight of responsibility like a badge, sacrificing her own dreams for the sake of her brother's future. Then, Ben walked in, a gentle veteran with kind eyes that seemed to carry both the weight of regret and warmth. He entered the diner like a breath of fresh air. Their connection crackled with electricity as he spoke softly about the simplicity of life, and Sophie felt an unexpected lightness in her heart, a treasure in the midst of her daily struggles. Stolen moments turned into laughter and shared stories over cups of coffee, each second spent together a balm for their open wounds. As the days turned into nights, the magic of their bond blossomed. In just 100 days, they grew to fill each other's lives with hope and laughter, their conversations under the flickering diner sign weaving a warm cocoon against the world's harshness. However, the whispers and judgments from Ben's affluent family loomed like dark clouds, sowing seeds of doubt. They didn't understand the richness of Sophie's spirit, born from hard work and resilience, qualities Ben had grown to cherish. The town's annual festival drew near, an event synonymous with joy, but for Sophie, it felt like a looming battleground. It was everything she had ever felt pushed against, years of struggling to show she was worth more than her humble beginnings. As she prepped for the festivities, nerves twisted in her gut, knowing how judgmental eyes could tear someone down. Then came the festival, the lights dancing like twinkling stars as laughter echoed around her. Sophie tried to immerse herself in the celebration, joy bubbling beneath her skin. But an unforeseen misunderstanding shattered her moment of happiness. One careless comment spiraled, and suddenly she found herself painted in disrepute, judged harshly by Ben's family, a reflection of the socioeconomic divide that threatened to pull them apart. The weight of their judgment felt like a high tide, powerful and overwhelming, pushing her to question everything she and Ben had built. As she stood there, heart aching and eyes glistening, something inside her stirred, an ember of courage ignited. She stepped onto the makeshift stage, drawing the gaze of the townsfolk. Sensing the heaviness in the air, she gathered her breath and spoke with a fierceness she didn't know she had. Integrity is worth more than the material things we possess. Her voice rang clear, rising above the murmurs. Family isn't defined by wealth. It's defined by hard work and loyalty. We are more than the labels cast upon us. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The townsfolk listened, nodding along as her words resonated like a heartbeat, strong and defiant. Ben stood frozen in place, pride and disbelief mingling in his expression as the crowd reacted. It was her truth pouring from her soul, a testament to the hard-fought battle she had fought. Yet, as silence enveloped the festival, Sophie remembered her own truth that remained unspoken. Something so profound, she knew it could shatter everything or bind them together forever. Would she have the courage to reveal it? The air was thick with tension as Sophie took a breath, feeling the hearts of everyone around her weigh heavy with expectation. The moment teetered on the brink of revelation, two love-struck souls caught in the web of judgment and hope. Sophie felt the weight of every eye on her like a soft blanket, but it was so much heavier. The air was tense, electric. She could see Ben in the audience, his face a canvas of concern and admiration. As her heart raced, she wondered whether this was the moment to finally lay bare the secret she had tucked away, that beneath her cheerful exterior lay a past intertwined with pain and resilience. Taking another deep breath, she gathered her thoughts. "What I haven't told you," she began, her voice steady but vulnerable, "is that I was afraid of being judged because of where I come from. My life was always about survival, about making ends meet. I made choices that might not have always made sense, but they were to protect my family." Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as she spoke, her words rolling out with an unexpected release. "I grew up seeing my mom work 3 jobs, and I never felt good enough. I've spent so long worried that all these moments, the laughter, the love I found with Ben, would be taken away from me because of my background." She paused, the truth finally spilling out. "I feared that one careless word could turn everything sour. I can't lose him. I won't." The crowd murmured, and Sophie noticed tears in some eyes. She could see it in their expressions, understanding and empathy replacing judgment. People knew what it was to fight for a better life, to endure hardships that threatened to drown them. Even those who had wealth and privilege were not exempt from their own struggles, which made her heart swell with shared humanity. Ben stepped forward, moved by what she shared. "This town has seen its share of hardship, Sophie," he said, breaking through the dividing walls, "and they know your strength. I know your strength." There was something powerful in his voice that resonated deep within her. "You have inspired me with your perseverance, and that's what counts, not where you come from, but the heart you put into everything you do." As her eyes met his, she felt a rush of love blossom between them, a bond fortified by their truths. But rising from the crowd, a figure stepped forward, his own shadow casting doubt over the moment. It was Ben's father, the very person she feared would judge her the harshest. He looked grave, but intrigued, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "I've listened," he said, his voice low and steady. "But this community thrives on stability and legacy. Family ties are everything to us. Can you provide that for Ben?" The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Every heartbeat echoed Sophie's uncertainty as she searched for a way to respond. Would she turn and run, or would she stand her ground? "My family has been my anchor," she managed, her voice steady now, "and I've built a life on loyalty and hard work. I know love is worth fighting for. I can provide stability, but it's up to Ben and me to pave our own path. I'm done letting others define what my worth is." The crowd reacted, murmurs of admiration sparking as eyes widened. Sophie could feel the change, the shift from skepticism to spiritual connection. But the weight of Ben's father's judgment remained heavy above her like a storm yet to break. As the tension in the air thickened, Ben's father didn't back down. "Love is futile without foundation," he challenged, a thinly veiled threat in his tone. "And if you are not willing to conform, this relationship will cost you dearly." The world around her shifted, twisting with uncertainty. Would Ben choose the life that came with wealth and expectations, or would he stand with her, a woman who challenged everything he had ever known? Sophie felt the stakes rise like a tidal wave, and at that moment they were all on a precipice, waiting for the next move. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest, and she waited, holding her breath for Ben's response. Would love lead the way, or would the shadows of doubt suffocate them? The answer felt tantalizingly close, yet painfully elusive. Sophie watched as Ben's father's glare cut through the room like a knife. Each second felt like an hour, the room pulsing with unspoken words. Surely she could hear the throbbing pulse of the crowd, waiting, expecting, hoping. Ben stepped forward, his brow furrowed, grappling with the weight of his father's words. Sophie could see the internal struggle reflected in his eyes, the flicker of loyalty battling with love. She longed to reach out, to take his hand and ground him in their shared truth. But the distance felt insurmountable, like a canyon of expectations. "I know you want what's best for me," Ben said, the deepness of his voice resonating with intensity. "But what's best for me isn't just about tradition or standing on the shoulders of our family's legacy. I've seen a future with Sophie, one where love and commitment stand above all else." His words tumbled out like stones rolling down a hill, carving a new path. Ben, listen, his father replied, the frustration in his tone crackling in the air. A future built on dreams is fragile. You know the responsibility you hold. Your mother, she would expect you to— Stop! Ben's voice rang out, sharp and slicing through the tension. I'm not choosing between my family and Sophie. I love her for who she is, not where she comes from. My life isn't a script written by anyone other than me. Sophie's heart soared as she listened, hope flickering like candlelight within her chest. This moment felt monumental, like a pivot where everything could change. But the undercurrent of doubt still gnawed at her. Would Ben's father back down? Or was this the beginning of an all-out battle? The crowd was eerily quiet. Then came a soft ripple of murmurs. People looked at each other, eyes wide with disbelief. This wasn't a typical confrontation. It was a defiance that echoed a truth many were too afraid to voice. Slowly, Ben's father relaxed his arms, the sternness in his expression loosening just slightly. You think fighting for love is enough? There was a hint of something softer in his tone now, a questioning edge. I hope you understand what you're asking. Sophie took a step forward, feeling the pulse of inspiration surge within her. I understand that love needs courage. It's about trust and believing that we can create a life together, built on our own terms. Yes, I have scars, but they've made me who I am. I'm proud of my journey, just as Ben should be proud of his. A hush fell over the crowd. She could sense the shift. Ben's father was wavering. But was it enough to assuage the years of tradition? The stakes were still high, and the risk of rejection loomed like a storm cloud. In that silence, she caught sight of Ben's eyes, those deep pools reflecting unwavering belief. It was in the way he looked at her, full of conviction and warmth. He reached for her, their fingers intertwining, and together they stood defiant against doubt. Just then, an elderly woman in the back of the room, who had been a quiet observer, stood. Love cannot be measured by what we inherit, but by how we choose to nurture it, she said, her voice a gentle whisper that carried across the space. Sophie's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected a champion to rise from the shadows of fear. Ben's father looked around, quietly assessing his— The crowd held its breath, and Sophie felt the world pause, waiting for what would come next. Would he accept their love against the backdrop of generations, or would tradition and expectations hold sway over this budding relationship? Sophie felt the weight of their future rest on the tip of a single decision. As the seconds ticked by, dread and hope twisted together in her chest. The answer hung in the air like a half-forgotten promise, waiting for the moment to finally reveal itself. The tension in the room felt electric, crackling against Sophie's skin. She could hardly breathe as she watched Ben's father run a hand through his hair, a gesture that suggested a battle was raging inside him. "Do you really think you can make this work?" he finally asked, his voice quieter but no less intense. "This isn't just about you, Ben. It's about family expectations, about what we've built. What will people think?" Ben's chest heaved as he took a deep breath, processing his father's words. He squeezed Sophie's hand tighter, a silent pact of support between them. "I can't live my life based on the opinions of others," he said, his voice strong again. "My happiness is worth more than any reputation. Sophie makes me whole in a way I can't explain." Sophie felt tears prick at her eyes. It was the purest declaration of love she had ever heard. Yet, standing in the eye of this emotional storm, she knew they were still in the thick of a crisis. "Dad, can't you see?" Ben implored, desperation layering his words. "You taught me to chase what's real, what's genuine. We're not living in a storybook where everything is scripted. We're living our own lives." The crowd was on edge, whispering among themselves, their expressions a mix of sympathy and anticipation. Sophie could feel their energy shift, riding the waves of Ben's defiance. But she also sensed the anxiety clinging to Ben's father, the weight of tradition pressing heavily on his shoulders. "I worry," his father confessed, his voice dropping further, "that you overlook the realities of life. Love can't sustain you when the world outside is cold and harsh. It's not enough, Ben." A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience, but Sophie found herself stepping forward. "Maybe love is about facing that harshness together," she said, her voice steady yet tentative. "It's not just about the good days. It's about facing what life throws at you, side by side. And I promise you, I'll fight for Ben every day, just like I know he would for me." Ben's father flinched slightly, the vulnerability in Sophie's words gripping his heart. She could see the shift in his posture, that slight tug towards acceptance. "Love doesn't cancel out obligation," he warned, his voice wavering, "but it can reshape the way we honor it. If your love is genuine—" Sophie felt the world swirl around her. Was he actually considering acknowledging them? Really thinking about the kind of love they shared? With every passing second, hope fluttered violently within her chest, battling the fear that threatened to drown her. Then Ben took a breath and stepped closer. "Let us show you. Give us a chance to prove it," he urged, his eyes locked on his father's. "We'll face everything together, the good and the bad. Isn't that what family does?" Silence washed over the room again, thick with the weight of unspoken words. Sophie could see the conflict etching lines on Ben's father's forehead, his internal struggle playing out in real time. As the minutes stretched, she thought of all they had risked, of the dreams that could vanish if this moment slipped through their fingers. If they lost this opportunity, would they ever find their way back? But then a movement caught her eye. The elderly woman who had spoken before was leaning forward, her eyes glistening with understanding. "Sometimes the hardest journey leads to the most beautiful destinations. Don't let fear keep you from what's right." Ben's father turned toward her slowly, a softening in his gaze. The crowd seemed to lean in, collectively holding its breath, waiting for his response. His voice came out like a whisper, heavy with contemplation. "Love, responsibility, family, perhaps they can coexist." But just as the words began to settle, a loud crash echoed from the back, shattering the moment. All eyes turned to see a figure stumble, sending chairs clattering. Sophie's heart raced. What had just happened? Would it disrupt this fragile balance they were building? She felt the momentum shifting again, uncertainty boiling back to the surface. What else could derail their fragile breakthrough? As the crowd stirred, she clutched Ben's hand tighter, tension radiating through her. The moment was teetering on the edge, and they desperately needed it to land on hope. What would unfold next? A figure lurched into view, stumbling through the crowd. Sophie's heart dropped. It was Jamie, Ben's younger sister, her face pale and eyes wide with panic. She clutched a tray of refreshments, the remnants of spilled punch dripping down her dress like an unwelcome declaration of chaos. "Jamie!" Ben exclaimed, breaking his gaze from his father. He rushed to her side, kneeling to help her steady the wobbly tray, frustration mingling with concern. "What's wrong?" Tears spilled from Jamie's eyes. I didn't know you were all here," she stammered, glancing from Ben to their father, the tension between them palpable. I just wanted to bring everyone drinks, like every year, but I overheard. I heard you, Ben." The room fell silent again, the weight of her words pressing in. Sophie swallowed hard, feeling the room shift once more. This was unexpected, but Jamie's presence might just be the turning point. "Overheard what?" Ben asked gently, his eyes full of an unexpected understanding. "What you said about love and family." Jamie's voice trembled, a whisper that seemed to encapsulate the room's collective heartbeat. "I know everyone thinks that stuff about who we should love or how it should look, but I just want you to be happy, Ben." Suddenly, the fractured dynamic began to mend, like threads pulling back together. Sophie felt herself take a breath, warmth spreading through her as Jamie stepped forward, her youthful bravery radiating in stark contrast to the uncertainty of the adults in the room. "Love is scary," Jamie continued, "but it's also the best part of being a family. Sophie loves you and you love her, right? Why can't we just let that be enough?" Ben's father was visibly shaken, the lines of tension on his forehead deepening as he began to comprehend the whole truth. He glanced from Jamie to Sophie, weighing their words like precious stones. It was a moment filled with vulnerability, exposing not just Ben's struggle, but the very contradictions of love and duty woven into the fabric of their family life. "I just want you to have a love that lasts," he said quietly, the mask of authority slipping just enough to show the man underneath, fearful, protective, hopeful. "I'm afraid you'll struggle, afraid of what could happen if you chase this path." Sophie leaned in, fortified by Jamie's honesty. "We are willing to fight for this, to explore our path," she said, her voice unwavering. "We're young, but we're also wise enough to understand that life's challenges make us stronger. I promise you, if you let me in, I will cherish Ben every single day, no matter what." The room buzzed with a new energy. Eyes darted between family members, seeing the entwined faith and courage come alive. Jamie wiped her eyes, takes Ben's hand, and pulls him closer. "Together," she said softly. With the vulnerability open between them, Ben took a step towards his father, shaking off the weight of expectation. "Please, Dad, all we're asking for is your support. We want to choose our destiny, not have it forced upon us." The air hung still, thick with every word spoken and unspoken. Their futures lay dangling in the balance, a bright flicker of hope waiting to ignite. Before Ben's father could respond, there was a flicker in his eyes, a softening that hinted at understanding. But before he could open his mouth, the clattering of chairs echoed again, this time more profound than any spill. Sophie couldn't help but gasp, her heart slamming against her ribs, as the doors swung open, revealing a figure from the past whose very existence threatened to reshape everything they had just fought for. "Could it really be?" she whispered, her pulse quickening. Who was this newcomer, and what consequences would their arrival cast upon this fragile moment of hope? The figure stepped into the room, the light catching on their familiar face, as if time had folded in on itself. It was Alex, Sophie's best friend from high school, a friend who had slipped away in the wake of old misunderstandings. The room felt as though it had been turned upside down, the laughter and chatter replaced by an icy silence that settled like a heavy blanket over everyone. What are you doing here?" Sophie managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex looked from Sophie to Ben and Jamie, scanning their faces with a mix of anxiety and nostalgia. "I heard about the gathering, and I thought, well, maybe it was time to come back. I didn't want to miss you all." The words fluttered out, nervous, but charged with an undeniable familiarity. Ben shifted uncomfortably beside Sophie, his protective instincts kicking in as he glanced at his father, waiting for a reaction. But it was Jamie who broke the tension. "Alex, I can't believe it's really you." Jamie's delight offered a vessel of warmth amid the uncertainty, typical of her ever-optimistic spirit. Sophie felt her heart race, memories flooding back, both sweet and painful. They had shared so much in those days, whispers under the stars, spontaneous road trips, and dreams spun from the threads of youth. But that also included heartbreak when complications forced their paths apart. "Why now, Alex?" Sophie asked, searching her friend's eyes for clarity. "Why come back now?" "I guess," Alex started, shifting nervously, "I wanted to find my way back. I missed being part of something real. I heard about you and Ben. I wanted to see it for myself." His gaze darted between them, filled with an anxiety that felt hauntingly familiar. Sophie noticed Ben's jaw tighten as he considered Alex's words. You think you can just waltz in here after all this time and everything will go back to how it was? He asked, the protectiveness edging into anger. Ben, Sophie interjected, aware of the tension rippling between them. Let's just listen. It's been years. Sophie could almost see the dissonance rattling in the air, caught between past hurts and the promise of healing. Jamie stepped to Alex's side as if offering a bridge to the gaps they all carried. You don't have to explain yourself, she said softly. We all change, don't we? Maybe there's a chance to mend things. The two boys stood opposed, Ben with his protectiveness looming, and Alex wearing vulnerability like a fragile skin. And then there was Sophie, experiencing a tempest of emotions, ranging from exhilaration to dread. What would their reunion mean for her present? Could there still be a space for all of them amid the complexities of love and friendship? As they stood there, grappling with old memories and future possibilities, Alex suddenly asked, "Do you still believe in us, Sophie? The laughter, the adventures?" Sophie felt the weight of the room pressing in again as she searched Alex's hopeful, questioning eyes. Could they rekindle the connection they once had while navigating the new paths carved by time? Before she could respond, a low voice sliced through the air, the voice of Ben's father, hesitant but determined. Are you really ready to let the past into the present? And nerve-wracking tension simmered, futures spinning like dandelion seeds caught in the breeze. She knew one truth. There would be no easy answer. What if the last piece of her heart had been on the other side of the door for all this time? And as Sophie looked around at her friends and family, she felt the precariousness of the moment. Love and connection had a way of weaving stories, and in that vulnerable silence, the threads were about to be pulled tight. What would they all decide? Sophie swallowed hard, feeling the room's atmosphere shift. It was as if every gaze held an unspoken question, waiting for her to break the stillness. She opened her mouth to respond, yet no words came. Her heart raced as memories she had tucked away came flooding back. Alex's laughter, ringing through late-night adventures, the way they would share secrets in the corner of the school hallway, and the abrupt goodbye that shattered it all. "Can we just take a step back?" Ben spoke, his voice firm but strained. "You're just here, dropping back into our lives as if nothing happened. It's not that simple, Alex." Sophie turned to Ben, searching for understanding in his eyes. "Maybe it is that simple," she whispered, feeling a surge of frustration. "We're all adults now. We've grown. We've changed." "Change doesn't erase the past," Ben replied, his tone wavering. He cast an uneasy glance at Alex, whose vulnerability only seemed to amplify the tension swirling in the small room. Jamie prowled the dividing line like a peacemaker, shooting each of them furtive looks. "Look, I think we should talk this through. Alex has been brave to come back. Why not hear him out?" "Brave?" Ben huffed, shaking his head. "What's brave about showing up?" "Ben, this isn't helping," Sophie said, her voice rising slightly. "I want to know what Alex has to say. I want to understand." As the words fell from her lips, Alex's eyes flickered with something she hadn't seen in years: hope. "Sophie, I get that history pulls at us like a weight. I can't change what happened. I want to share the memories again. But this time, I want to build something new." Sophie felt a flicker of warmth at his words, and in that moment, the air felt charged, thick with possibility. Would they really be able to recapture those innocent moments of joy? But a shadow of doubt loomed, reminding her of the pain that distance had carved between them. Ben stepped closer to Sophie, his concern palpable. "And what about your relationship with him, Sophie? Where does that leave us?" The vulnerability in his voice stirred something deep inside her. She felt the weight of their current love, the safety, the laughter, and the gentle touch of his hand in hers. Could she reconcile the past while nurturing the present? "I don't know," she finally admitted, glancing between them. "But I need to find out. Maybe we can all find a way to coexist? To see where this goes?" A silence washed over the room, and beneath the tension, an echo of old laughter permeated the air. Jamie leaned in, adding, There are so many bridges that need crossing. Maybe instead of fighting, we could start rebuilding them. Sophie turned to Alex, searching for an answer in those familiar eyes. You want to be back in our lives? Doesn't that mean being open about the past? Absolutely, Alex said, the tenderness in his voice revealing more than just intent. I want to face everything and see how we can support one another now. We deserve that chance. The collective tension hummed in the air, a bittersweet melody of hope and uncertainty. And for the first time in a long time, Sophie felt a surge of courage. It was a fragile step toward reconciliation, yes, but maybe it was just what they needed to take together. Just then, a sudden noise from the hallway broke their moment, an unexpected giggle that floated into the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. They turned to see Ben's younger sister stand at the door, her curious eyes wide with wonder. Are we having a party? A rush of warmth enveloped Sophie. In that innocent laugh lay a possibility, a reminder of how life's connections could form unexpectedly, like a new story waiting to be written. But as Alex met Sophie's gaze, something else lurked in her mind, an uncertainty that lingered. Did they have the strength to carry their past with them and still look ahead? Let's see where it leads, Sophie murmured, feeling the threads of their lives woven together once again, yet knowing that every stitch held its risk. Would they unravel, or could they create something beautiful from their tangled histories? And as the door opened wider, the laughter of innocence floated in. She felt the anticipation tempered with apprehension, the stories of their past ready to collide with the promises of tomorrow, the real journey still standing just beyond the door. Sophie glanced at the doorway, her heart pulling at the sound of Ben's sister's laughter. It was a refreshing reminder of simpler times, a glimpse of innocence that seemed to wrap around them like a warm blanket. But as the girl hopped into the room, her joy swiftly shifted the atmosphere, reminding Sophie of everything at stake. "Can I join?" the little girl asked, bouncing on her toes. "I don't know if you're having a party, but it sounds like fun." Ben's stern expression softened, and he knelt to her level, a flicker of a smile breaking through. "It's a bit complicated right now, but maybe we can make it fun." The seriousness hung between them, but that innocence sparked a light. Sophie watched as Ben engaged with his sister, the tension in his shoulders easing, if only for a moment. It was small, but it felt significant. Could they learn, even through the confusion? "Why don't we all sit down?" Jamie suggested, interrupting the undercurrents of silence. "We can talk about everything, the past, the present, and maybe even the future." Sophie felt the weight of those words. A future. Could they really talk about that when shadows of the past loomed so heavy? She turned to Alex, who stood slightly off to the side, his expression a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Yeah," he added softly, "we can share stories about what we remember and how we feel now. No pressure, just honesty." The little girl clapped her hands. "I love stories. I have some funny ones. Can I go first?" Sophie couldn't help but smile at Ben's sister's enthusiasm. Sure, why not? And so began a cacophony of laughter and shared memories. The little one regaled them with tales of her school exploits, anecdotes of her made-up adventures, and the unofficial role of superhero she liked to play during recess. With every story, the barriers felt like they were slowly dissolving. The pain from the past lingered, yet laughter filled the spaces. As the room relaxed with their share of memories, Sophie dared a glance at Alex. He was entranced, a small smile gracing his lips as he listened. But there was an apprehension in her chest. How would they address the harder memories, the ones that gnawed at the edges of their laughter? After a while, Jamie sensed the shift and broke the lighthearted chatter with a reminder. "Okay, let's not forget the important stuff, like why Alex is here tonight. I mean, he didn't come just for a fun time, right?" Sophie felt her stomach knot. Here it came, the thread she had been dreading. She wanted to braid their past with promises of the future, but couldn't ignore the volatility of their history. Alex cleared his throat, his expression shifting to seriousness. "You're right, Jamie. I have a lot to say. and I really hope you'll hear me out." Sophie held her breath, wishing for the right words to surface. Could they move from this friendly gathering to unraveling their complexities? The weight felt monumental. She glanced at Ben, who looked ready to bolt, just like sometimes in the past. "Look," Ben began, his voice cautious, "I don't want to go digging through old wounds. We all have baggage. We know that. But maybe we need to dig a little," Jamie interjected, his tone gentle but firm. "To truly heal, we have to confront what's been holding us back." Sophie's heart hammered. She had come here wanting connection again, but now the stakes felt higher. "Are we all ready for that?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly, glancing at Alex and then at Ben. "Can we handle it?" They exchanged glances, uncertainties shimmering in the air. A brave new step hung in the balance, challenging the safety of what they'd built, the love and care they had for one another. Just as they prepared to delve into the depths of their pasts, a crackle of static. Ben's phone broke through their tension. He pulled it from his pocket, glancing at the screen. "I need to take this," he muttered, a hint of worry creeping into his eyes. As he stepped out of the room, the atmosphere shifted. They remained, unsaid words thick with expectation, hanging like smoke. Sophie turned to Alex, who looked unsure, and to Jamie, whose steady demeanor seemed to hold some kind of understanding. "Looks like we're on pause," Jamie said, breaking the silence lightly. But she could sense the weight of the moment. They were at a crossroads, and she couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to change dramatically. What had she stepped into? As Ben walked back in, the look on his face made her heart sink. Something was off. Sophie's mind raced. She knew that with the revelation that might come next, their lives would never be the same again. And deep down, she wondered, was she ready to face whatever was waiting on the other side? The door clicked open, and Ben stepped back inside, his face a mask of uncertainty. The warmth from moments before felt stifled now, replaced by a chill that seemed to settle over them like a cold veil. He scanned their faces, lingering on Sophie, as if he needed her strength to reassure him. "Sorry about that," he said, his tone flat, betraying the worry behind his eyes. "It was just my mom. She's not doing well." The words hung heavy, and Sophie felt her heart flip. "What do you mean? Is it serious?" Ben hesitated, swallowing hard. "She's been in and out of the hospital recently. Tonight, she's struggling to breathe. I didn't want to worry anyone, but—" The room fell silent as they absorbed the weight of his words. For a moment, Ben seemed lost in thought, exhaustion etched on his features. Sophie reached out instinctively, placing a hand on his arm. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice just above a breath. "Is there anything we can do?" He looked down at her hand, then back to Jamie and Alex. "I don't know. Right now, I need to figure things out. I didn't expect to be here discussing all this." "Well," Alex said quietly, "maybe being together is what you all need right now." He glanced at the little girl who was now fiddling with her toys on the carpet. "She can't understand how heavy this is, but maybe we can be a comfort." Sophie admired Alex's calmness in moments like this. It was a balm, a reminder that they were all already part of something bigger. Ben's gaze softened as he looked at his sister, and Sophie couldn't help but feel the threads of their family ties stitching back together just a little. "Yeah, maybe." Ben took a deep breath, and Sophie sensed the hesitancy in him, mixed with a flicker of hope. "It's just been a lot for all of us. What if we made a few plans?" Jamie suggested tentatively. "Lay them out for when you need a break. Something to look forward to amidst all this." A small smile crept onto Ben's lips, though it barely masked his pain. "I'd like that, actually. My mom always used to say that family exercises were the best way to get through tough times." Sophie felt a wave of warmth wash over her. This was the Ben she remembered, the one who found solace in family strength, who believed in laughter even during storms. She leaned in closer. "We can sit with you when you're not at the hospital, plan outings, just give you room to breathe, too." Ben nodded, his expression brightening just a fraction. "Thanks, Sophie, really." There was an invisible weight lifting, but the truth still loomed. The past was still a jagged piece of their lives, ready to be addressed when they found enough courage. Alex cleared his throat. Whenever you're ready to dive deeper, we'll be here. But for now, can we escape this heaviness for just a while longer? The little girl nodded energetically, jumping up from the carpet. Yeah, let's play a game. I brought my favorite. It's so fun. Okay, let's focus on her, Jamie laughed, sensing the relief in the air. As they dove into the game, laughter trickled back into the room, albeit tentative. But it was there, a reminder of glimmers of hope against the darker moments. Sophie smiled at Ben, feeling grateful that they were each other's anchors again, no matter how fleeting. Still, while laughter rang in their ears, a nagging uncertainty crept back in. Sophie wondered how long they could dance around the real issues. The pain would resurface, and when it did, would they still be anchored together? Just then, an unexpected text vibrated across Ben's phone, and his expression darkened again as he read it. His brother's name flashed across the screen, sending a tremor of anxiety through the room. What now? Sophie thought. As Ben's face paled, she knew they were just moments away from another revelation, and this one had the potential to shake their foundations even further. Could the fragile ties they were rebuilding hold strong against yet another storm? Ben's hands trembled as he stared at the screen. The smile he'd worn moments ago faded, replaced by a mask of disbelief. Sophie felt her heart sink further, sensing another wave of uncertainty crashing against their fragile hopes. "What's wrong?" she asked quietly, concern in her voice as she slid closer to him. The light-hearted atmosphere felt like a distant echo. Every pulse in her body awaited the response that could tip the balance yet again. Ben looked up, his eyes darting to Jamie and then to Alex, as if weighing how to deliver the news. "It's my brother, Jake," he said. "He needs me to come to the hospital immediately. It's bad." The room fell silent, the laughter and chatter evaporating like mist. The light from the overhead fixtures suddenly felt too harsh, the reality crashing down like thunder. Sophie's pulse quickened. Just like that, everything shifted again. "What happened?" Jamie asked, her voice shaky. Ben swallowed hard, trying to piece the words together. "He was in a car accident. It sounds really serious." Sophie's throat tightened as she grasped Ben's arm. "What can we do? Should we come with you?" He shook his head gently, gratitude mixing with anxiety in his eyes. "I think I need to handle this with my family first, but I promise I'll keep you all updated." Alex stepped forward, his demeanor shifting to support. "We're with you, Ben. Just tell us what you need." As Ben nodded, you could see the weight of responsibility drape over him again. Sophie felt torn between wanting to follow him and respecting his need for space. She glanced at Jamie, sensing her sister's worry, the fear threading through her youthful innocence. "You don't have to go through this alone," Jamie said softly. "If you need a ride or any help with anything, just let us know." Ben's shoulders slumped slightly at Jamie's words. For a moment, the heaviness shifted and the warmth of family filled the room again. "Thank you, Jamie," he replied, his voice steadying. "I promise I'll reach out." Sophie watched as Ben prepared to leave, bracing himself at the doorway, not just for the news that awaited him, but also for the implications that would ripple through the family. "I will call you," he said, looking each of them in the eye before stepping out. As the door clicked shut, the room buzzed with an anxious anticipation. Sophie glanced back to see Alex's expression reflect understanding. "We need to be ready for whatever comes next," he said quietly, acknowledging the tension that filled the void Ben had left behind. But then something sparked within Sophie, a tiny ember glowing brightly. She took a breath, feeling a surge of purpose. "We should set up a plan for supporting Ben. He'll need us more than ever, especially if things get complicated with their family dynamics. We can set up a schedule, coordinate visits, check in regularly." Jamie nodded vigorously. "I can help. I'll make a list of things he might need, food, company, whatever we can do." Alex chimed in, his voice steady. "I'm in. We're stronger together, and he's going to need all the love and support he can get." In that moment, Sophie felt a renewed sense of commitment. They were family, after all, bound by love and support. Together, they would navigate the storm that threatened to overshadow Ben's current struggle. "Let's meet again tomorrow," Sophie proposed, determination rekindling the fire within her. "We can plan every detail. Even if we can't be there physically, we can lift him up. Our love will give him strength." As they exchanged ideas, the laughter began to tread its way back into the corners of the room. Encouragement replaced the tension, transforming the fear into a collective sense of hope. Sophie could barely believe that from the ashes of uncertainty, something beautiful was emerging. No longer was she alone in confronting her past. Now they had forged a bond that would withstand even the fiercest storms. As they gathered their scattered ideas, Sophie felt a determination growing like never before. They could turn every struggle into an opportunity for growth. And if they could weather Ben's family upheaval together, perhaps they could stitch together the jagged pieces of their past, creating an even more resilient tapestry of love. Later that evening, as Sophie lay in bed, she reflected on the journey ahead. Yes, the road would be tough, but they were ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited them, and ready to share the strength that love provided. Her heart felt lighter as she held her phone close, waiting for updates. And in that moment, she whispered a small prayer. For Ben, for memories, for the roads yet to be traveled, and for the love that had knitted them together tighter than on the very first day. And she promised herself that no matter what lay ahead, she would stand by Ben's side, honor her past, and fight fiercely for their future together. The darkness outside faded into a tender light, reminding her that dawn always breaks through the night. With hope blooming in her heart, she closed her eyes, ready for a new tomorrow, together. And as the sun began to rise, illuminating her dreams, she knew that love always found a way, regardless of the storms they might face. Now it was time for them to fight for it, together. Now, this is your moment. If you loved this story, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the heartwarming tales we have for you. Hit that like button because it fuels the algorithm and helps us grow. We want to hear from you in the comments, so share your thoughts and feelings about this journey. And remember, don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness transformations like this. Your support means the world to us. Truly, only true fans understand the importance of this. Now it was time for them to fight for it, together.